Welcome to Corks Conversation II with Lisa Unger.
Yes, Kathy, I am so excited to be speaking with Lisa again. We talked to her in season 2, and so much has happened since
I
then.
know. And during that, way back then, when we were little baby podcasters, and we were recording over the phone, so we didn't get to see each other.
I know. I love Zoom. Have I told you lately how much I
Yes,
love
you have.
Zoom?
Anyway, let's get into it with Lisa. Let's remind everyone about Lisa and what a great woman and author she is. She is the New York Times and international best-selling author of 20 novels now. 20! She was on our podcast in season 2, as you said, and then we were discussing her 17th book, Confessions on the 745, that's now in development at Netflix. Looks like it's going to star Jessica Alba. Not bad, I'm just saying.
Not bad.
She has books published in 32 languages, millions of copies sold worldwide. She is regarded as a master of suspense with very good reason. Her current book we're talking about today, which is Secluded Cabin Sleeps 6, is featured on all the best book lists for this fall. She has also been nominated and won numerous awards leading up to this. In 2019, this is my favorite. She received 2 Edgar Award nominations, an honor held by only a few authors, including someone you may have heard of named Agatha Christie. She also writes short
Big
fiction
company.
that has been anthologized all over the place, Best American Mystery and Suspense included. And she writes nonfiction that's been in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, NPR, Travel and Leisure. Let's get to it. Lisa, one of my favorite things she does, in addition to her writing, is she's the current co-president of the International Thriller Writers Organization, which Christy and I are both members, and we have attended Thriller Fest many times over. It's such a fantastic organization. Lisa lives on the west coast of Florida with her family, and this novel we get to talk about today, again, Secluded Cabin Sleeps 6, is getting rave reviews. Like I said, it's on all the best-selling book lists for the fall. My favorite, though, review is from Ruth Ware, one of our favorite authors. Love her. And she said this: it's a deliciously tense ride that takes a deep dive into the meaning of family and the price we'll pay for those we love. Oh. Lisa, welcome.
Thanks for having me, you guys. It's so
Yay,
great.
yay, cheers.
I know. Let's do a cheers to
Yay.
book number 20.
Cheers! Yay! So
Book 20. It's so appropriate because, Lisa, you picked the cupcake Prosecco. So we're having a little bubbly
We are.
to celebrate this milestone.
I know.
You guys all have a sip.
I'm going to have another one.
Yeah.
Just a little one.
I know,
Lisa and I-
It's refreshing white peach, honeydew, and grapefruit
Yeah.
that lead to a toasted brioche finish. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just
Hey.
I think it's just a fun beverage.
It
It's
is.
like, I don't always love champagne, but I love Prosecco. I think it's just like such.
I know. I don't know what's the difference, except they come from Italy or whatever, but it tastes better to me.
It's sparkling wine. Like it can only be champagne if it comes, as you know, from that region.
From Champagne.
Exactly.
region.
So everything else is sparkling wine, and then there's a couple of other different kinds, like I think it's Moscato or something like that, but it's like very sweet. So this is kind
That's
of like
super sweet. Yeah.
The one in the Spain is Cava.
oh right,
And
right.
in Italy, it's Prosecco.
Yeah.
But I like Prosecco, really. I
Fun.
do.
It's a fun drink.
Well, this is perfect for
Yes,
this
yes.
celebration today.
Yes, it
How
is.
fun.
Yeah, that's what my wine glass
One
says.
more.
Celebrate.
Cheers.
Or my
Thank you,
Oh,
champagne.
guys.
yeah. Look at that.
Mhm.
Ah.
Yum.
Very nice.
And it's a beautiful afternoon here in South Florida. I'm probably there in
It
Tampa
is.
as well.
It's gorgeous. Yes, beautiful day.
Perfect. Okay, so before we get started, I'm going to give everybody a little bit of a synopsis of Secluded Cabin Sleep 6. Basically, we've got Hannah, her brother, her best friend, their significant others, all 6 of them are going to go to this wonderful, beautiful weekend getaway in the mountains or in the woods, I guess. They, hot tub, personal chef. I mean, they're going all out. It's great, great, wonderful R&R, that type of thing. It's supposed to be perfect, but this is a Lisa Unger book. So the dreamy weekend is going to turn into a nightmare. And there's a deadly storm brewing. The rental host is a little creepy. The chef tells them like this creepy story about the history of the place, and then weird things start happening, dangerous things start happening. Nobody knows who to trust. There's all kinds of secrets going on, plus whatever. And I stayed up most of the night reading it, and then I had to finish it the next day, and it's a page turner, great story. And you got to read to the end. We're not going to give it away, but last time we talked, you did say that you usually start out with like a germ or some kind of idea that you do research and get info on. So I'm wondering, what was that for this, your 20th book? What was your initial germ?
Yeah, and it was actually kind of two things. So I have for a couple of years, for a while, I've been very, very fascinated by the idea of DNA testing. So I've been doing a lot of research, short of taking my own DNA test, which is something.
You haven't done that?
No, I have not, and I will, and I probably won't unless I have to. For some reason, who knows why, unless I'm legally compelled to take which hopefully won't come to that.
Which hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah, let's hope not. And so there was that kind of ongoing obsession in the research that I've been doing into, not just the technology, like, we've talked about Confessions on the 745 and like Last Girl Ghosted, like both of those books have like a technology component to them. It's not really the technology that I'm interested in when I kind of do a deep dive into these things. It's more like how the technology is rewriting how we relate to each other. That's what really fascinates me. Mm-hmm. So that was something that's the piece that's been really fascinating to me. And there were a couple of news stories that I read over the last couple of years that really got me to thinking about, this idea of, what makes us who we are, in terms of genetic. Mm-hmm. That's sort of my ongoing obsession. And then, during the pandemic, my husband and daughter and I wanted, renting these really beautiful cabins in a couple different areas, in the Asheville area, and also in the Blue Ridge area. And we, really, really enjoyed our time there because it was a way to be socially distanced, but also we could hike and all that. And, it was just kind of a getaway in a year that we were traveling at all. But, I'm really just not a good vacationer. And so, my brain was like just constantly going from the minute we arrived there. It was everything, like from the door codes, like, is it, does everybody get the same code, or does.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Can the last people come back and just come in?
People come back and just come in, and there was like all kinds of weird things, like, we turn on the TV to like, turn on Netflix or whatever. It was like somebody's account would be on there.
Yeah, that's
like
creepy.
It's a little creepy. And
this just happened to us on my husband's birthday. We went for a quick overnight getaway, and sure enough, the last person that was at this place, their account was there, and we were like,
I know, it's weird. And then we at one of them forgot to log out, and then when we got back on our thing at home, like people have been like watching on our account, like, so there were shows and movies on there that we watched, and I was like, that's weird. And so it was like,
oh man, that's a book in itself.
There's like all these things, and like, sitting out enjoying the outdoor fireplace, and this guy comes driving up in his gator, and he's like, this older man with like this long hair and a baseball cap, and he's like, I look in on the property for the owners from time to time. I was like, Oh, weird.
Sure you did.
Wow. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, how are we supposed to check that? Like, how do we know?
Right. And this has been like kind of the whole, I mean, this is like, I mean, it's not a new thing, but I think it's definitely something that people are doing now more than ever is like just this kind of, Airbnb rental.
Mm-hmm.
This in this case, it wasn't Airbnb. It was another. It was a just a rental company in the area that we like to visit. Really beautiful places, all the amenities, really really nice. But yeah, it just led. And one of the trips was with my extended family. It was like during COVID, so of course it was like full drama on all fronts. And
Oh
if
yeah,
you're
for
gonna
sure.
like travel with your extended family like that, can be really inspirational. So
Time to kill someone. Let's go.
yeah. So that's kind of how like all those things kind of just they kind of intermingled, and the next thing I know I was hearing Hannah's voice, which is kind of how it works for me. And Henry was a really major voice for me moving through the story, even though he doesn't really figure into any of the promotional materials and
Yeah.
the jacket copy and all of that, but he was
Mm-hmm.
obviously a huge feature of the story for me, his voice and his journey.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I liked Henry too. Um, so you mentioned the pandemic.
Mm.
The pandemic happened since the last time we talked to you. It's just like a totally different world. Obviously, we're on Zoom now. What's like the major? Can you think of like a major thing that changed in your writing world as far as like how you used to do things and now how you do things? Or
Yeah, I mean, for me, I writing has always been an escape hatch for me. It's the place I go, to metabolize darkness. Like that's my space. And so during the pandemic, I
mm-hmm.
wrote more than ever. I know that, a lot of people had a hard time writing during that time, and I can understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I had I didn't have little kids running around. I had like sort of a teenager, or just a teenager at that time. And so
Mm-hmm.
things were a little bit different for us than I think it would have been if she'd been small. But I just wrote more than ever. um and it really solidified for me that early morning time, which is such an important time for me creatively, to just always be there during that time, especially during the pandemic, because once the day started, and like the toxic sludge of like the news and all the negativity, and just how all of a sudden you were expected to be online all the time, on Zoom, on social media all the time. Like it really forced me to solidify that creative space is only for that, and
Mm-hmm.
that the rest of it
Mm-hmm.
has to wait until the creative work is done. And it was true during that time, especially because things were so difficult and so dark and so frightening. You just didn't know day to day what was going to happen, or all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But like I just felt like if I don't take this time every day, you're just going to wind up staring at your computer, looking.
Right, which is what I did. Thank you
I
very
mean, it's
much.
like, like it's hard
It
not to.
was
It's like a
horrible.
train wreck. I mean, you can't
Mm-hmm.
turn away from it. So I just felt like I had to get things done as early as possible before the day started. And so that really
Mm-hmm.
solidified.
Is your daughter a night owl? Because my daughter ended up back here during the pandemic, and she would sleep half the day. So I probably shouldn't have had any excuse for not writing.
No, she's an early bird too, like she's been my like when she was really little, she was like a super crazy early bird. Like she was like as early as I am. And so I was getting up even earlier, like to beat her to the punch. So I'd be getting up at like 3, so that I'd get like at least 2 solid hours before she decided she was going to get up. And then as she grew up, I just kind of taught her, like that this is the space for being creative, right? So if you're
Mm.
up, that's cool, but I have work to do. This is what I do. If you want to be with me in the room, then you have to do your creative work too, whether
Oh.
that's you're drawing pictures or you're playing with your toys or whatever it is. And so now, she is an artist, she's a visual artist. She animates, and she's also draws and paints and all that as well. But now for her too, those morning hours are really critical. Like she will
Oh.
go to bed, like if she's got a ton of homework and it's getting too late, she'll go to bed and set her alarm for the morning and get up and finish her homework rather than stay up late and do it like a lot of kids do. So she's also like kind of got that, she knows that she's stronger in the morning than she is at 10 o'clock at night. Like by 10 o'clock at night, I'm a wreck. Like I can barely see straight.
I know, right?
Like,
She's
hi,
kind of
no.
thing.
Yeah. After 8, I'm an early morning person too. And I
Yeah.
love that golden hour of the morning where it's just fresh and
Yeah.
just magical, I think, more than the rest of the day. But by 8 o'clock at night, don't even ask me a question. Like, it's just embarrassing.
There's nothing there.
No, I got
You're
nothing.
used up. Like that's it. Yeah. Like
And you won't remember it the next day.
No,
yeah,
no.
exactly. Yeah. Like, and sometimes I even feel like when the clock turns 10, like in the morning, I'm always a little bit like, oh, like
Yes. The best
the
part of the
day's
day is over. So, but I do think we all are hardwired with that internal clock.
Oh,
And,
for sure.
some people have that nighttime magic, and I just can't even imagine it. But also, we are hardwired, I think, is to be either pantsers or plotters. And you are a magical pantser in my mind. You're like a unicorn to me because I like Excel spreadsheets and color coded sticky notes. And we are interviewing another great friend of young writers, Jeffrey Deaver, in a few weeks. And you two must be the most polar opposites.
We are.
Right?
We've talked together before.
Have you really?
Yeah, we're polar opposites.
Did you fight?
No, but it's no. I have great respect, and I do think you're right. Like I do think you're hardwired to be an early bird or night owl. Like I don't think you can change it. Like I think a lot of people have to change it for various reasons, and I think they always struggle. And then when they can go to that space and being able to honor their clock, they're like different people, right? Same with introvert, extrovert, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Like I think that a lot of introverts are forced to live like extroverts, and like the pandemic was like a joyful time for them because they could finally, connect with their inner introvert. But same true for plotter versus pantser. I don't like that word.
I don't either. I don't like the dichotomy.
I prefer gardener.
Yeah, I love that.
Right. And that I can't take credit for it. That came from George R.R. Martin. But I like that idea because like you plant a seed and it grows. And you might have to prune it. You might have to, give it a little time and space to find its way through the soil, water, light, air, time, all those things. And then the story evolves in that way. And that's how I experience it. If I were to outline or do the thing where there's like character sketches, or if I knew how my book was going to end, I would not be able to write it.
I love the gardener. I suppose people would use that word instead of pantser because pantser seems haphazard, where gardener
haphazard.
Yeah, and gardening seems
you accidentally wrote a book,
right, and it was just this occurrence. I just did this thing, but gardening is such an organic experience, and it is going to grow up in some way, but you can never predict. I love that. It's such a much better analogy. Writing world, listen.
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, and once I get published, since I'm a pantser, I can finally say that I don't have a brown thumb, because I do, and as far as gardening
You
is
do.
concerned.
You're not. It's not good. Lisa, you should see her patio.
But I
It's
can be a gardener
horrible.
in the metaphoric sense.
Exactly. Yes, I that's good. Yeah, I feel like important distinction, because I also feel like, and this is funny, and not Jeff Deaver, but like some people, like people who are gardeners are very very respectful of people who outline. Like I always am very quick to say, well, you don't choose it, and but I know people who do both ways, and there's no choosing it, and plenty of people are very successful with both ways of writing. But like, plotters are not as nice to gardeners.
I think so too. I think there's some judgment there sometimes.
Yeah, because I was going to say Jeffrey Deaver was what was that, at Sleuthfest, Kathy, where he was up there with another, and they were playfully going back and forth, but he was like, you've got it wrong, basically.
I know, and I think it's kind of weird, because like, but I also think that they don't understand it, and I think that I know that I'm sure 5 examples will come up of of how this is not true, but my theory is that people who write the way I write have been writing since they were kids.
Yeah.
I've been writing since I was a kid, and it's almost like there's a part of your brain that never grew up. Like nobody ever told you that you had to stop writing stories. Although my dad did try to tell me to stop, but
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole thing.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah. I was talking to Lisa Cron, who's a writer about writing, right? She's a wonderful writing teacher. And she said that there are people who just intrinsically are intrinsic storytellers. Like you can learn to tell a story, but there are those who are just intrinsic storytellers. And I think those are the gardeners.
Yes.
Or just is who you are in your
100%.
brain.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I've been, obviously a writer since I was a kid. I've been a reader since I was a kid. All my education has been focused on writing, everything from poetry to journalism to screenwriting. I am a avid reader. I have been since I was a kid. I read wildly across, genre. I don't discriminate from literary to anything that, is a great story. And I don't, and I've always read like that. I've always read just, wildly across genre, like just a literary omnivore. And, I think that in a lot of ways, I've just internalized the form of the novel. Like just the way I experience the world. Like I'm a natural narrator of my existence and of, the stories and lives of the people that live in my head. And I just don't remember ever being that way.
It's ingrained.
Well, we're happy.
Yes, we are. Okay, so let's take a little sip. And Lisa, we're midway. So this is when I don't know if you recall, but we do the question in the bottle. A random question.
I'm intrigued. Let's have it.
Okay, let's do it. Christie?
Okay, so, all right. What's your favorite season and why?
My favorite season? Autumn. And because it's a time of death. No, I'm just kidding.
That is exactly what you're supposed to say, Lisa.
I mean, it kind of is, but like it's I'm always fascinated. I'm more fascinated by autumn than I am by winter, more fascinated by spring than I am by summer, because I think of them as kind of like liminal states. They're like the spaces between things, between the really like, the full richness of summer and then like the desolation of winter. So, I love that. Fall to me feels like a new beginning, I guess, because it's like the time when you would go back to school.
Oh, yeah. And pencils and paper.
Pencils and paper. Exactly. And books.
Like nerding out on the new school supplies.
Absolutely. 100%. Yes, exactly right. So all of these things are my fall.
Yeah.
I definitely do think it's my favorite.
Those are good reasons.
Yeah. So you guys, you're both in Florida. I'm in South Dakota, and we really experience the 4 seasons, like dramatically. So what is it like in Florida? Like, is it just a little bit cooler? Are you in
Well, I was
hurricane
going to
season?
say there's like two seasons here. There's the wet season and the dry season.
Okay.
And the dry season is starting now, so the weather's beautiful and it's fall. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of like a good time of the
it
year.
is.
I was also going to say that I kind of like season 5 the best.
What
Season
is
4 was
that?
good.
Season 6 just
Because we're just in season
Oh
5
God.
now.
Like what?
But no, I know that you could go
Oh,
all over the place with the
yeah,
that's
for
seasons.
hilarious.
yeah, it's
So,
yeah, and Florida I think has I have a really good friend that writes about Florida. His name is Jeff Klinkenberg. And he says that, there are seasons, there's all kinds of there, there is this subtle change, there is a fall when that sort of blanket of humidity just kind of goes away, and all of a sudden in the morning you can breathe again in the morning. That's really nice. We're entering
yeah.
into that perfect time.
Mm.
The reason why everybody lives in Florida, we're entering into that space. But there's stone crab season.
Ooh,
There's like all these there's all these different seasons, but they're just not the same as, like, the traditional 4 seasons that we all.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we just have way too many seasons down here.
That's really funny. Okay, so I could talk about seasons with you all day, but what I really want to talk about is I read this great interview you did in Crime Reads this summer, maybe, um, and you talked about the need for batching time and also creative cycles, and I absolutely loved that conversation. I was wondering if you could share more about that with us.
Yeah, that was a conversation that I had with Eli Craner, who's
Yes.
a really excellent young novelist. In fact, I actually have his new book right here, which I just read. It was
Hey,
Oh,
Eli.
wow.
Shout out, Eli.
shout out to Eli. Yeah, excellent, excellent book, coming out next year. And we talked about, so there was a time in my creative life, I mean, I guess maybe it was maybe about 6 or 7 years ago now, probably, where I just felt extremely burnt out. Not on the creative, never, that's always a like sort of a nourishing place for me. But I just felt very burnt out, like just on a mental energy level. And I had to, like, kind of look at, what was wrong, like what is the
Mhm.
problem. And I realized that, my slowly, because authors are asked to perform in social media
Mm.
in a way that they never were before, that was taking up a lot of bandwidth for me, right? Like, just the responsibility that I
Hmm.
felt to be present in social media, uh, for my readers, for booksellers, librarians, for the books, for my publisher, right? So,
Hmm.
it's changed the way writers have to work. And, if you're not careful, then you're going to be wasting your creative energy on something that drains rather than nourishes.
Mm.
So I read this book called Deep Work by Cal Newport, and there's a lot of wisdom in that book. I suggest it for any writer or any creative, because there's a lot of just really powerful information in there. But my big takeaway was that as a creative, you cannot toggle between the deep work of creativity and the shallow work of marketing and promotion. So
Mm.
you can't be working on your novel, click, 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 get distracted. Oh, email. Oh, some notification, whatever. Go do that thing. You could do that, but you're not going to go back. And if you do go back, it's
You're going to
going to
suffer.
take
Yeah.
you a while, and there's going to be a kind of a drag back to the creative. Um, so
Hmm.
he suggests that authors should not be on social media, but he suggests that if you must be on social media, then you should batch that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I started. We talked in the beginning of this about, those hours in the morning, those
Mm-hmm.
golden hours. So that, to batch that time, to make sure there's a 2 hour or a 3 hour block where I'm just being creative. And it's like, if you run into the wall, when you're trying to write, which you do when you write the way I write, when you write like a gardener, then you can do stuff. You don't chain to your desk.
Yeah.
Go for a walk. You can bake a cake. You can go to the gym. You can do the laundry. You can do stuff like that, but you can't toggle out to the shallow work of answering your email or, doing whatever it is you think you need to do on social media. Because then you don't go back. Like, it's very easy to switch out of the creative, but it's not easy to go back to it.
I had read similarly that you need to focus on creating your own work before you consume anybody else's
100%.
creative work,
Yeah.
whether that be whatever it happens to be.
Mhm.
And that's a rule that has it tickles me sometimes when I get tempted to go toggle to the wrong area.
Right.
Because when it's hard, that all those email and it's hard, like it's so tempting. It's like a drug almost that's
Well,
sitting
no,
there
it
like
is. It literally is. It's a dopamine hit.
hmm
So like your brain, you be in your creative zone. I'm like, I'm a professional creative, full-time professional creative. So I can log, 3 to 4 hours of creative work, right? Which is not normal. Usually it's like
yeah
90 minutes. That's like a
yeah
normal cycle. And you are, you owe it to yourself as a writer to stay in that zone for as long as you can. When you start to drift off, when your focus starts to drift, then I mean your brain gets tired. I mean, it's literally brain energy, right? So your brain starts to get
Right.
tired, and then it's like, oh, I need a snack, or
yeah
I need, I just need a little dopamine hit. I just need one more hit. Let's just check the email, and then as soon as you've done that, you're down the rabbit hole.
And then you lie to yourself and you think,
Yeah.
just for a minute, it will help me refresh. And it's such a
Right.
lie.
It's a lie. It's a never.
But do you have a list that you just say, okay, it's time for my little dopamine hit? Let's see, I'm gonna go fold the clothes, or I'm gonna go
Yeah, I mean,
eat something,
I feel like
or
you can't. I mean, you have to do. It's okay to do those things. It's okay. It's good even to do those things. Like if you're in a narrative block, or
like those are refreshing, where because it's like you just shut off your
yeah, if you
mind
go
for a
for a
little
walk
bit.
and you leave your phone, or you listen to music on your phone, or whatever it is that you do. Music is great. I mean, for me, that's a big part of my process. Like just to get on the treadmill and turn on the music and just go blank. For me, that's a huge part of how I work. Walking outside with the dog, or anything that's just not,
And don't listen to podcasts while you're doing it.
I mean, if I'm working out, sometimes I do listen to podcasts, but I don't listen to podcasts if I'm doing it to jog loose a narrative problem.
Right.
I do. I love the
Right.
concept of, I think movement
Yes,
is so helpful if you're
it is.
trying to work something out.
Yeah,
I,
anything.
I get more writing done during yoga than I think I do sitting
Yeah.
at a desk.
A lot of stuff like that is very, it's very nourishing, So anything like that is good. But, we all know that, social media is not nourishing. You may feel like you do it.
Right.
And maybe,
Oh my gosh, it's such a time suck. Oh my gosh.
but it's not even just that it's a time suck. There's just something about it that's uniquely draining, I find.
I think so too. And I think that, there's that, like you say, that hit that you get, that dopamine hit. So
I
even
know.
if you're on something positive, then you'll get to the negative stuff really fast, right? Like that, it's just in there. So,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. And that's something that like, that
Well,
too, like, because even the news is like that. You get on the news and you're like, oh,
I know.
it's going to happen to us,
No. No.
And
It's,
no, I want to go live on an island somewhere. That's what I want to do.
What-
Oh, so speaking of one of my favorite things to do is kayaking, and you've said that writing is analogous to kayaking. So I'm very intrigued by that. Can you explain to our listeners?
Yeah, because the writing life is hard. It can be, there are a lot of challenges. There can be big water, but the thing about kayaking, right, is like you just keep your center and you keep your core tight and you just keep paddling, right? Like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, it's like
You can't stop in the middle, right?
you can't stop. If you stop, the current can take you backwards. You just keep going. And, I find that is, an apt analogy for pretty much everything. It's like it doesn't matter, what comes. You have to just keep paddling. I mean, what's the alternative that you stop paddling? When things get hard,
Right.
do you stop writing? Do you give it up?
Right.
If you get a rejection or something, something you feel like, oh, I can't do this or whatever, like everybody has those days. So just, you just get, like you basically, the good thing happens, the bad thing happens. You sit down, you write, you walk the dog, you do the laundry, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No.
Good, bad days.
I just had a flash of Dory in my
Me
head.
too.
Just
Just keep paddling.
Just keep paddling.
Okay, Lisa, Christie's got a final quick question for you before we wrap up.
Okay. Yes. Okay, a little different than our one episodes. If you had to choose one of your characters to be your personal chef, who would you choose and why?
To be my personal chef?
Yeah.
Well, it's going to have to be Chef Jeff.
I was just going to say, you have the easy answer here.
He literally is a personal chef. He's extremely creepy.
He's extremely creepy.
I know. Oh my God.
Yeah, but at least he's interesting.
Mm.
And, he
Right.
did a good job with the sides.
And the sides are really the best.
The most important part of any meal. We all
I
know
agree.
that.
100%. Okay, Lisa.
I don't think I'm going to be able to pick anybody else.
No, he's the obvious choice. Like, you have to.
No, that's a perfect one. I know. As soon as I read it, I was like, well, of all, not everybody has a chef in there.
I know, it was ridiculous, almost. Okay, Lisa, when our listeners want to know more about you or how they can reach you, what's the best way to find you?
Well, ridiculously available. So you can find me at lisaunger.com. If everything is kind of there, all the books in order, all that kind of stuff. And if you sign up for my newsletter, then you get a free short story. So that's exciting. And then my newsletter, I try to keep it really fun and light. And, there's always going to be a giveaway in every newsletter. And then you can find me on Instagram at LA Unger. Find me on Twitter at Lisa Unger, which tells you exactly how old I am because I actually have like Lisa Unger. Like that's it. It's not like Lisa Unger.
Right. 3080 Lisa Unger. Yeah, it's just.
And then on Facebook, it's at author Lisa Unger. And
Awesome.
I do interact in real time. Like I do interact with my readers there usually. So
Once your creative time is over.
Once my creative time is
Right.
over.
During your chunk.
During my
Well,
back.
this has been so fun.
It's been so great.
Lisa, this has been so fun, and we're really, really appreciative that you came back, and can't wait till the next book.
Thank you.
And I think all we have is a cheers.
A final cheers.
You guys at Thriller Fest?
Final
Yep,
cheers.
we'll see you again.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers, you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.